Welcome back to Tony's, well, and Lass's when she's not in the river, super cheap outdoor camping equipment channel. Now, normally we do lightweight things. In this edition, or in this series of editions, I've done the cheapest tent that Amazon do. I've done the cheapest sleeping bag. I'm now gonna do the cheapest mat that Amazon do, which is this one here. Now, you might find something cheaper, of course, but this is the, it's trying to take off. This is the cheapest airbag, inflatable airbag. This costs on Amazon £25. 750 grams. It's a bit breezy here. I tend to do all my reviews out in the middle of nowhere, not in my back garden or in the house. Well, I used to do it in the house occasionally. That's the reviews. Right, so the pillow has its own separate air pump here, and I have to say, was easy to blow up. Right, that was the pillow blown up in 30 seconds. Excuse the kilt, because I'm camping, I'm in my nightwear, and I thought it's easier to look unusual in a kilt than to show my gentleman's sausage off in my nightwear. So that's defrosted, deflated that. Now that's pretty much blown up pretty firmly, and that's less than a minute. That is pretty good going. So a minute for this section or less, depending on your puff, and 30 seconds or less for the pillow. Again, depending on your, I'll just let the air, if you watch the rest of my videos on this trip, you'll understand why I'm just letting this flap in the wind to dry out a little bit. Ooh, God, bloody hell. I'm just gonna haul this in. I don't know what the rating for this is. Air mats like this come with an R rating, and the very, very good winter mats will have an R rating of 5, 6 or 7, where you can take them down to minus very, 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 very freezing cold temperatures, minus 10, 15, that type of thing. Clearly, this is a summer air mat. I'll explain why it's a summer mat. Now, whenever I use a mat, I always put it on top of a piece of foam mat, either something like this or something like this. It's just something that I just do out of habit for just that little bit of additional comfort. I do it on my Best Thermarest and X-Ped mats, and I did it the same here. Just have to bear that in mind in my summary here. It was warm and comfortable. Now, some of the warmth will have been garnered from having something like a foam mat underneath it. Now, the reason why I'm just highlighting that as being important is because the way that this is designed, the air, that's one whole piece of air inside there. So when it's touching cold ground, the air from the ground is going to get into the air inside here, and with you moving around, cold air will circulate inside there. You do have these ridges here which will give air pockets, and of course, as we know, air pockets are a good source of warmth. So, to a degree, what you lose from one, you're going to gain from the other. But this is definitely not a 3-season mat. But if you're using this mat outside of summer, say late spring, very, very early autumn, absolutely 100% put a piece of foam matting of some description underneath it, or you will likely get cold with this mat from the way that it is designed. But for summer use, without a mat, on a warm summer's day, it would be fine. 13 to 14 degrees with a foam mat underneath it, it was fine. Because of course the foam mat gives the insulation from the ground, stops cold air getting up into these air pockets, and therefore stops cold air circulating around. So with that, you know, you might be able to turn it into a, you know, into a 2-season mat. I still wouldn't really be taking it beyond that. It's just not going to be warm enough, and you will get cold. And then you'll be blaming your sleeping bag that you're getting cold. But the reason why you're getting cold most likely is not your sleeping bag, but is the mat that you're sleeping on. So just always bear that in mind. It's not necessarily always the sleeping bag you're cold, but what you're lying on that might be getting you cold. But for 1 to 2 season use, depending on what you got underneath it, this was a comfortable bed. When I have the head of the pillow, you know, virtually at the end there, clearly you can see that I've got a lot of mat left over. So I'm wondering whether the mat itself is maybe 2 meters, and then they're added on the pillow as well. So I have to say, for use in an average tent, unless you've got a very, very big tent, this mat will be too big. But if you've got an inner in it, as obviously there is theoretically here, you know, you can just have it raised up at the back. So it was fine. It really didn't make any difference to anything whatsoever. It may look a bit silly, but you know, again, for a 15-20 pound airbag, just for general basic use for a few nights, and you don't want to be spending hundreds of pounds, which literally something like, you know, a thermarest is. I brought this with me, but I didn't use it. I brought it because I was here for 2 nights, and I needed to know that if any of this cheap stuff failed, that I was going to be covered, and I didn't need you know, to dash back to the car and back home, which I did not want to be having to do. So I did bring backups, but I didn't need any of my backups. All of the cheap stuff I brought with me has seen me through 2 days, 2 nights of camping in the middle of nowhere. That's the dog playing down in the river as usual. This stuff has been used properly for 2 nights and 2 days here in the middle of Dartmoor. The weather's been down to about 13 degrees. It's been very blustery and quite wet. It's rained quite a lot. So check out my other videos. It's been a very comfortable airbed. Probably I would prefer maybe not to have the pillow on the end of it there, but you know, it is what it is. It's kind of, in some ways it was actually quite useful, because I like to have my head lifted up a little bit more. If I was using a regular mat, see what the wind is doing with this shelter. If I was using a regular mat, then I would inevitably probably put some clothes or something under the mat to lift the mat up a little bit, and then put a pillow on top of the mat itself. So a pillow's not essential. It's not particularly important to have it as part of an airbag, but it's there, and I must admit, generally speaking, it worked fine. There was no deflations. Everything stayed up as it should. I'll put a link for it, hopefully, below if you want to buy this, or anything else on Amazon. I'll get a teeny weeny little percentage, thank you. If you like this video, or you like outdoor type of videos, things are a bit unusual, funny men wearing funny clothes, camping in usually funny shelters, usually the best MOD ones, of course, then obviously give us a quick like and a subscribe and a notification. I better dash out of this weather. I'll see you in the next one.